All right, we are coming to you live from my brother's house. As you can see, my nephew's artwork is on the wall. Some of you know that Dad is staying with my brother Connor and his family, and that's been nice. So yeah, we want to just kind of jump in. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see our PowerPoint, which I always have to remember where that button is. There it is. Alrighty. I have to move my window here. Maybe. Oh, there we go. All right. So first we're going to have Dad talk a little bit about the ministry that him and my mom, his wife Leah, had over the last 23 to 25 years. So he's just going to give us an overview on their time in Africa so far.
Well, we landed in Kenya the 24th of February, 2000. 2000, the year 2000. And we were learning Swahili first. Excuse me. Then we moved to Loangila. No. We moved north to
Moyale.
Thank you, Moyale. And we were learning Baran because the Baran people, we were working with them. And we wanted to be able to speak in their heart language and field questions and answer them in their heart language. I was working with the men, and we had a real successful group, a small group, where I was telling chronological Bible stories, and we had 100% response. Now, there were only about 7 guys, and 3 of them, I think, were already Christians. We had the work day, we're working on the house, and I would give them tea and a slice of bread and tell them a story from the Bible. And after 22 sessions, everybody was ready to be a Christian at that point. Now, we were moved down country for a while, so the group got scattered, and then we moved back, and I found one of them one day. This guy showed up at the gate who had converted, and he said he was the only Christian in his neighborhood, and the Muslims are being hard on him. So I said, let me bring my pastor and we will come. And that guy noticed things in the house that I wouldn't have noticed. And he said, you don't need these fetishes and things anymore. And you don't need cigarettes anymore because you have Jesus. And he put it all in a cook pot to burn. The wood thing they burned, they burned wood. Excuse me. And he burned it up. And one at a time, his 2 sons showed up. And they had been converted, and I had never met them. And that's the way storying is supposed to work. Somebody learns your stories in such a way that they can tell somebody else. And getting that information is enough for them that they can be converted to Christianity. Then we were moved down to Kenya and Nairobi, excuse me. We stayed there for a few months. We resigned from the mission group that we were with, and we moved to the church to Moyale, Loangila, which is in central Kenya. And that's not the Moran people anymore, it's the Turkana people. So that's the language I'm working on now. Excuse me. And I, I do tell stories to the young people because the young people, especially preschoolers, will show up every day, and I tell them stories. Leah was telling stories to the ladies as they learned um, beading. Now they have their traditional beading, but Leah taught them to make necklaces and bangles and earrings that American women will buy. And she was bringing them to America and selling them at church at Christmas time. And we were giving our testimony. And that's kind of where we are.
So I want to talk a little bit about what the needs are of the village of Loangila, because as Dad could tell better than I could, when a missionary is working in the field, telling about Jesus is the main goal, but a lot of other benefits end up coming with a missionary. The education that they have to bring options and resources and other ministries, etc., to a village makes a huge impact, and that has been the case for Loangila. When Mom passed and Dad had a stroke, one of the things that Pauline, the pastor's wife in Loangila, told me was that the elderly people cried the most at her memorial service that they held for her because they feared that they would no longer have any help, because there aren't as many programs as there are in the United States to help the poor and the disabled and the elderly as like there are here. So we're going to go over just some of the basic needs of Loangila, which my Alan and Leah, they have helped in all of these areas. So with losing their impact over the last couple of years, these areas have been suffering. So 88% of people in Loangila can't afford food, medical care, or both. This is true all the time. It was extremely true during seasons like COVID-19, and my parents did an amazing feeding project. Without that, there would have been people who would have lost their lives. 87% of severe burns in the area are sustained by children. It is very common for kids to be playing around the fire and they're being watched by their older siblings, or their mom turns their back for a minute and they're falling into the fire or touching the hot pots or whatever. And these are severe burns that need to be treated by a medical professional because they genuinely don't know how to treat them on their own. Even burns that we would be able to handle from our kitchens, they don't have the resources and tools or knowledge to care for them on their own. So this becomes a huge expense for a family, and sometimes the burns can be so severe that children are disabled for the rest of their lives, like losing function of fingers and toes and different things like that. We estimate that the cerebral palsy rate is 6% or higher. For reference, it's only 0.23% in the United States. We couldn't find specific data on Loangila because WHO doesn't have a page just for Loangila. So, but it is generally understood that cerebral palsy rates are too high in Kenya. And even the Kenyan government sent an official to Loangila while my parents were there because they'd heard about how extremely high it was in Loangila. So 6% is the rate of some of the high areas in Kenya. And it's believed that it's possible Loangila has even higher. This means that you're having a huge percentage of a generation of people who are disabled, and none of these people have access to proper physical therapy, proper nutrition, all sorts of issues that come with it. And for those of you who followed my parents' ministry for a while, you know about Sabina, who is one of our favorite aspects of our ministry. She's such a bright, beautiful young woman. And she was abandoned by her family after being abused for years because they couldn't afford to take care of her anymore. So she has been adopted by the pastor's wife the pastor's family. And they love having her, but the needs to care for, or the expenses to care for her are more expensive than a normal child. 28% of people are starving to death. In just the past couple of years since I've been helping out my Dad and maintaining ministry function in Loangila, there's been multiple times where we have saved someone from the brink of death who was starving to death, and we were able to save them. Oh, that's a duplicate. 30% of people will have a severe eye infection at least once. This is probably the most common thing that I get asked for money for to help. It's so dry and dusty, and there's so little clean water that the dust gets in their eyes. It causes inflammation, and the next thing you know, it's infected. So this happens in children and adults alike. Now, I was able to teach the pastor's wife how to make a poultice out of garlic and onion that she applied to her eye, and she was very excited about it and has been open to showing other wives how to do it because it worked so well. And of course, is much cheaper than going to the clinic and getting money or getting medicine that they can't afford. 58% of water sources in Loingila are considered saline. They are so salty. This, of course, is not healthy for the human body to consume this much salt water. So well projects has been something that mom and dad have worked on for a while with very little success. Lots of effort, lots of studying, lots of trying, but unfortunately has not been a success yet. The leading cause of death in children is conditions that can be helped, and that's really a hard statistic to read. Something as small as a fever can kill you when you don't have the proper nutrition, proper hydration, and you're dealing with a human body that is weak anyway from malnutrition and, salty water and all sorts of things. When mom passed away, mom been in their ministry, her job was a lot of the technical stuff, the social media and the website. Were all under her care. That was her pride and joy, was that website. She worked on it so hard. Unfortunately, we were unable to find anywhere that she had written down any passwords. And this is mostly because my mom's brain was a steel trap that she could just remember all sorts of things. I'm not like that. I don't think dad would claim that he's like that. Our brains don't hold that much, but hers did. So this was a big challenge for us whenever it came time to carrying on without her. We lost our access to the website that she had built because we couldn't hack into it. And we lost access to the Nomads for Jesus Facebook page. And that caused us to have to consider a name change. And honestly, we were very happy to do so. It felt very good to attach her legacy to the ministry since she had poured every bit of herself into it. But it was a difficult challenge. And we're going to talk more about that in a bit. But without mom and dad's boots on the ground to continue being good stewards of the donations that you guys have been giving, the ministry had to shift focus, and it shifted its focus onto Peter and Pauline, who are incredible servants of God. They have lived in this village their whole life, and they helplessly love their people. And Pauline has been a tireless advocate for them and constantly reaching out to me for help. Anytime she thought there was something we could do to help her village, she did. She operates in a very community service type way. When someone has a need, she's riding to the hospital with them or to the store with them to try to help figure out how she can help them. Both of them have taken so many different classes and training opportunities so that they can serve even better. And they are wonderful parents to their, I think, 5 children. 5 or 6, probably 6, including Pauline. So yeah, it has been great to be able to empower them to be the people that God has designed them to be, because they clearly were called to be pastor and pastor's wife to this village. And so the money has been going to help with medical needs, help with occasionally educational needs, but we really wanted to focus on life or death situations, and prioritizing people who were starving to death, or if without a certain surgery or procedure or medication, they would not be able to survive. We wanted to make sure that it was the people in the most need, and especially because there was a lot we have not known what to expect over the last 2 years. I'm getting pretty close to 3 years, honestly. So yeah, it's been a learning curve, and we've been kind of like taking every day as it comes. But our main goal was to make sure that your donations were still helping the people of Loingila. And the more that we could help Peter and Pauline with physical needs of the villagers, the more it freed them up to tell people about Jesus and to be the hands and feet for us. 95% of your donations went to the people of Kenya. We have not taken income, any income at all from your donations since January. And honestly, even before then, it was very, very little. It was like we had to pay for new website hosting, so that went out for it. But it's been a very immeasurable amount almost compared to what has actually gone to the needs of the people in Kenya. And that was important to us. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we lost the Sowing Beads and Seeds group and the Facebook page Nomads for Jesus. They're still up. And actually, I have some limited access to them now since I am the legacy holder for my mom's Facebook page. But I was only able to get that last month or the month before last. I had tried multiple times and Facebook always gave me an error message and wouldn't let it go through. So losing those passwords was something that our ministry was unable to overcome. As you can see, followers for Akiru never matched up to the followers for Sowing Beads and Seeds and Nomads for Jesus, especially when you combine those two following groups, because some people followed Sowing Beads for Seeds and not Nomads for Jesus and vice versa. We also, sorry, I have to move my little window because I can't see all of it. Oh yeah, donations for our ministry also never truly recovered. See, this orange line is what donations were for my parents in 2022. So this is while my mom was battling cancer. And then this is after she passed, we got a lot of help, which was much needed to help close out her life and lay her to rest. And that was a huge gift to us and we'll be forever grateful. 2023, oh, I'm sorry, I was saying 2022, my bad. 2023, you can see these are the peaks of mom's needs and helping us close out her life. But even 2022, which was before she got sick, the donations were way more than what currently we got in 2024. So this made everything a little bit more challenging. And we want to clarify that we are not frustrated about any of these fluctuations in donations. We were still able to do every single thing that God asked us to do. We were able to build Sabina's house. We were able to get Sabina new wheelchair wheels. We were able to save these people from death. We hardly ever had to say no because you guys kept donating. And the people who decided to pass their donation off to another ministry or stop donating entirely, we hope and pray that that was done under the direction of God, and therefore it's gone to where it's supposed to go.
Amen.
So jewelry sales is also something that never fully recovered as well. You can see this is where it was at the beginning of 2024, which was the most sales I had was December or January from 2023 to 2024. And then it drastically dropped from there. We did have one little peak because there was an event that we had that month. But the majority of people who purchased the jewelry, it was because they heard mom and dad's story. And those of you who've heard, especially, you know, the story of when the moment that Sowing Beads and Seeds was born, you know, the ladies in the village were terrified because they'd had to run for their lives from chopping down trees to make charcoal. And they were like, well, we've got to go back and get our tools because we left our tools there. And my mom was like, you can't go back because you almost died when you did it last time. Why would you go back? And Pauline said, what choice do I have? And God said, give them another choice. And that's what bore the jewelry. And so that powerful story really helped sell the jewelry. Currently, me and dad are unable to tour with the jewelry and tell that story. And even though we told the story online and shared and did our best, sales just have not been there. The truth is also that the majority of people who've been following my parents for years have already bought all the jewelry that they planned on buying. I honestly don't think I could fit any more of it in my collection myself. So, and we weren't gaining new people because, again, we weren't able to tour with the jewelry. So this is a struggle that our ministry has been struggling to overcome. So I want to kind of go over the 2024 timeline because I know that for those of you who've been following our ministry and following me and my family's journey to become missionaries, it might be a little bit confusing. So we want to kind of like tidy things up and make it a little bit more clear. February, and this timeline starts in 2023. I apologize, I mislabeled it. 2023 in February, me and my husband first got our inkling that God was going to be doing something different in our lives and making a major change. And we were like, well, what is it going to be, God? And we did not get any solid answers on what it was going to be. And then God was silent for a long time. In July of 2023, my dad had his stroke. Not the most fun our family has ever had, but definitely bonded us as a family and strengthened our faith in God. And you guys were incredible help to us, providing meals, providing financial needs, all
Amen.
sorts of things, watching my children, all so greatly needed. In August of 2023, my mom passed away. And because dad was still in the peak of his stroke symptoms, I stepped in to take over operations of the ministry. And I have been continuing in that role so that dad could focus on improving his health and recovering from stroke. And I know lots of people maybe don't know anybody who's had a stroke, and even less likely to have had their own. We don't recommend it, right?
No, I do not wish that on anybody.
But strokes people always ask me, what's his timeline for getting better? And it is literally strokes. It could be a few months, it could be a few years, it could be a decade. It's just, there's no telling what function will come back and how long it will take for that function to come back. So, in November of 2023, Joe and I, my husband, who is also on the video, we felt a deep restlessness in our ministry and in our lives. And it just felt like God was saying, felt like he was just shaking things up. It's like, it's time to go. It's time to make a change. January was when donations and purchases to the website for the jewelry, social media engagement, everything started plummeting, as you guys saw on the graphs that I just showed. Which was a lot to kind of navigate as me and Joe were trying to figure out what God was leading us to. And then, the sowing beads and seeds, Akiru, all of it just kind of also struggling at the same time. In February, God made it clear to my husband and I that we were called to be missionaries in South Africa, and then we were called to go with an organization called ABWE. And we definitely had a moment of like, South Africa, did you mean Kenya? But God very clearly told us South Africa, and we have never felt more sure of something in our lives. And since accepting that call, we have definitely gotten so many different confirmations of how that is exactly what God's calling us to do. So we are very grateful for that, because it definitely would have taken a sure thing to convince me. In June of 2024, Dad moved in with my brother Connor, because at that time, Joe and I were closing down our lives in Texas, selling most of what we own. He was closing out his job. I was finishing up closing down my business, and getting ready to move back to West Virginia. In July, my husband and I left Texas to move back to West Virginia. ABWE, the organization we're going through, has their training location in Pennsylvania, just 4 hours from where we live in West Virginia. So it made a lot of sense to move back here so we could be closer for those training opportunities. And we are able to stay with family for free, which is a priceless gift as well, so that we can really focus on our studies and make sure that we're ready to do this big life change. And now we're going to introduce Dorcas, Dorcas Creation. But the person that we're going to talk about is Jane, and that's this woman right here. So
that's our house.
Yes.
That we built. That's a bag house filled with dirt bags and stacked up. And there are 4 or so domes that and it's covered with cement. And then because the ground shifts, we had cracks. And what you see looks like a child's drawing is seen up and for the cracks.
Yes. So Dorcas reached out to us and was like, how can I help with Lowangila? And at the time we were praying, what do we do about the struggles that our ministry is having, and it just feeling like it's just circling the drain. And there's still so many needs, as you guys saw, that need to be met. And so Jane reached out to us and was like, how can I help? So Jane founded Dorcas Creations, which is a ministry that helps empower women through job training, nutritional support, disabled children, discipleship, and much more. When we made contact with her, she immediately set plans in motion to meet with the ladies in Loangila and is already developing a relationship with the pastor and his family. And I did want to read this report that she gave me from her trip to Loangila, I'm going to make available on our website so that everybody can read it. But I do want to read a couple of the words that she put in the report about my parents' ministry. It was on the day that she visited their house, as you saw from the picture. And she says, Leah and her husband were missionaries from the United States who sacrificed and devoted their time in serving the needy people in this society, especially those living with a disability. They sunk a borehole and installed a manual water pumping system to supply water to the members of the community. Leah and her team of women she had trained offered regular physiotherapists. Leah and her team of women she trained offered regular physiotherapy services to those living with disabilities, and the impact was evident to some of the children. The community remembers and honors her and her husband for their noble work. She took a step further in training and equipping some members of the community with basic skills and competencies in offering basic physiotherapy. And Pauline happens to be one of those who trained to service the community. She also trained in the community kitchen, gardening, which seems to continue to this day. So Jane was very happy and pleased with the fact that mom and dad were meeting needs of the village and doing it well. And as you see from the list of things that Jane is passionate about, she is passionate about nutrition. She is passionate about disabled children. She's passionate about job training. She definitely was an answer to prayer when she joined us. And I will share real quick one of the stories that she told me about her ministry to family. She doesn't just want to help the disabled child, she wants to help the whole family, which is such a need because there is a shame problem in some third world countries where people incorrectly believe that they did something wrong that caused their baby to be this way, and it is considered a shameful thing. And what Jane does is she structures these meetings where families will come with their disabled children. They will learn exercises, or they will learn a skill, or they will just spend time talking and having community together. She's created small groups who bond over their disabled children. And she had a woman who was coming and being very quiet and not talking very much. And after this woman had been coming for a few months, she pulled Jane aside and told her that when she first came, she didn't think that the group would be a help. And she was really struggling with the fact that she didn't feel like she loved her child anymore because the shame was overwhelming. The amount of work caring for a disabled child was overwhelming. And she just wished it kind of would all go away. And she said, but after attending this group, I can honestly say, I love my child and God is healing my heart. And when she told me that story, I just was like, yes, this is a woman we need to partner with. And in the main document of the main transition strategy, I've got more information on Dorcas, but I do love her vision, which is a transformed society with well-functioning households as a result of transformed women. And her mission is to transform women one at a time through biblical discipleship and economic empowerment. And when I read that, I hear God's words to mom and to dad, which is to give them another choice. And Dorcas creation is another choice. So a couple of her projects, one is the Nawiri Mama program, where this is the one where she helps families with disabled children. Another one is they have done a lot of COVID pandemic initiatives that continue to this day, like community gardens and job training and things like that. They literally just finished building not long ago the Dorcas Creation Empowerment Center. It is their own building where they can train moms to do sewing, catering, beadwork, hair styling, all sorts of things. And one of the things that Jane mentioned when I was on the phone with her was, she said, I want to go to the ladies in Loangila and ask them what they want to learn how to do. And I said, oh, I love that idea. And she said that she noticed an increase of productivity and progress when the women choose the thing that they want to do. So what mom and dad have done in Sowing Beads and Seeds was provide safe income for these women. And now not only can they continue having that option, but now they can choose whatever they want to do, which who doesn't want to choose whatever they want to do with the rest of their life?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
So, and I just saw that Dorcas Creation posted earlier today, actually, where she was listing a few other skills that they are now able to teach women. So they're not stopping at just the skill sets that they have now. They want to continue expanding and exploring other ways. They also established a school in a slum, which is an amazing and monumental task. And then they also have a discipleship program that I believe is connected to that school where they disciple teenagers. Now, one of the things that I've been communicating with Dorcas, and this is true for pretty much every area of her ministry, if not all of it, but I wanted to focus on just one. I asked her how much money would be needed to help a disabled child, and I compared those numbers with what it would take for us to help the same disabled child. And as you can see, for the same amount of money, you can almost double how many children you can help. And so if you give us $30, we will need someone else to donate another $30 for us to truly help a disabled child. But Dorcas Creations can help a whole child for $30. So we truly believe that transitioning donations from us to Dorcas is a way that you can continue having impact in these same lives in all the ways that mom and dad help them and more. And you can do so in a bigger way and help more people, which is truly exciting. So now we want to kind of go through what we are envisioning for 2025. I do want Dad to chime in with any extra notes. I know it feels like I'm talking a lot, but it's because I've been doing the organizing. So it's just like it was going to be faster and easier for me to get through these numbers that I've been doing a lot of research on. But now I want to hear Dad talk a little bit.
Thank you.
On what he thinks.
In regard to beads and seeds, giving the ladies a different choice of feeding their children and their family. Leah's role was to teach mostly. She would get up and start working on the beads and seeds project at about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. And the lady would show up about 10, and they would work until about 4, and they'd go home and cook dinner and prepare for the children and the husband coming home. My role during that time was to feed the ladies tea and watch. Well, our children had gotten grown and bigger, except for last born Ross. And so I went and did the storytelling earlier in the day so that I could be available to help give tea and whatever help was required during the day. Now, since Leah's not going to do her part, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. I'll still be telling Bible stories to people. Now, the men, you can't keep them consistent day by day because they're going and looking for work, they're going and taking care of the animals and things like that. But I can get the children to listen to stories every day and learn to tell them almost every day. When I go back to Kenya, since I won't be doing beads and seeds anymore, I'll be doing other things like telling chronological Bible stories. My time will be freed up to witness to adults if I can get to them. Of course, mobility is limited because of my stroke symptoms, but we'll see where God takes that. I hope that.
Hold on, I got one more thing and then we can do that part.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I'm excited about that part as well. Real quick, I'm just going to go over our kind of plan for 2025. There's a lot of moving pieces, so this is kind of like plan A, and if God shuts the door on plan A, then we'll explore plan B.
That's right.
So, let's see, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to make this a different shape, because usually, well, hang on, I messed up. Let's go back to where we were before. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this plan has already begun because we're already in January, but we have gradually reduced the workers at Dad's house. The house is too big for one person, really, especially because it was built in mind with doing the jewelry as well. So it's a workshop and it's a home for 3 people, and he's just one person. So if God opens the door for him to return to Kenya, he will need a smaller house. Sorry. So the house can be a resource to the community. Jane has already said that it would be an amazing place for them to set up workshops to teach family physiotherapy, different things. So hugely, hugely helpful. We've already begun reducing the amount of money being sent. The reason we are reducing the amount of money being sent is because since we are closing down the house, it doesn't need as much care, and we're saving up that money for what is going to come in April. In February, we are hoping to continue to find ways to partner with Dorcas and kind of find ways that we can work together. Jane Thuo already reached out to a well digging ministry, and they hope to help Loangila get some fresh water. So I'm going to be touching base back with Jane on that one. And we are still actively seeking other ministry partners. I've gotten some rejections, haven't gotten any yeses yet, but I'm still going to keep searching. In March, we are going to be kind of retouching base with you all on how you feel about switching your donation from us to Dorcas Creations. She has a very similar system set up on her end for receiving monthly donations. So you will get a tax write-off and all those kinds of things for that donation. But we are asking for you to continue donation until at least April. And what we want to do is hopefully my dad and I, and we possibly have a volunteer who's going to come with us to close down the house, gather belongings and keepsakes from the house, and can reconnect with the ministry there, and then say goodbye or say see you later. It's really a challenge because most of the time when you lose a spouse or a mother, you have to drive to at most another state to collect your belongings or collect your keepsakes. That is not the case for us because of the sacrifices that mom and dad have made to be missionaries in Africa. There are crafts that her grandchildren had made for her. There are pictures, there are hard drives, there's lots of things that at the end of the day, they're just things. And ultimately, we're not taking those to heaven, but we wouldn't say no if we could have them. And as far as saying goodbye or saying see you later, the future is uncertain, and we don't know when or if we will be able to return to Loangila. And at least for my family's sake, it would be less likely because God's called us to South Africa. Now, I do help to be a part of the ministry that ABWE is already doing in Kenya and finding ways to help. So I will always be connected to Kenya. We will always be connected to Kenya. We just don't know if returning will be an option. But we would love the opportunity to hug Pauline, shake Pastor Peter's hand, and encourage them for sure. And then from there, we move forward and get to, after kind of making it a clean slate, we get to say, what now, God, and see what he will tell us what to do and where to go. The cost of the trip is about $5,200, and that is for 3 plane tickets, food and lodging, traveling to Loangila, paying for some people to help us because we won't have long. It'll be a matter of days, and so having a couple of hands to help us do so would be amazing. So, and just kind of a fun little timeline with mom and dad's ministry versus Jane's ministry. Mom and dad moved in 2000 and began their ministry in Kenya. Jane founded Dorcas Creation in 2008. And mom and dad moved to Loangila in 2013, started sowing beads and seeds in 2015. And August, September of 2023, right around the time that we were losing mom, Jane's heart just kept, she said that God kept putting my mind to Loangila. And she actually reached out to a mutual friend asking if there was anything she thought that we would need. But the mutual friend was like, I don't think so. I think Abby is doing it all. And so Jane, kind of tried to set it aside. But again, God just kept burdening her heart. And in October, which was, right around the time that I just was seeing the donations dwindling and wondering what to do, Dorcas reached out in October. So now we kind of wanted to give our hopes for the future. And yeah, go take off.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to be witnessing to people more. It's interesting. It's different when I share my faith in Kenya as opposed to sharing it here in America, because in America, people put you off. They say things like, well, I'm not interested, or I'll pray about it, or I'll think about it, or whatever. And in Kenya, people either say, yes, I want to be a Christian, or I'm not a Christian yet. And that's more encouraging to me than the put off that I get here in the States. My mobility is limited now because of the stroke, but I'm not. I hope to be able to go and see people I've known and witness to new people as I'm able to meet them. We have a heavy Muslim influence in Loangila and mostly in the bigger town of Isiolo. We're even electing officials, city officials, out of Islam. So I'm eager to engage those people, and have in the past. I'm eager to do it more so now. So we'll see how that goes when I get there. Excuse me, I have to think about swallowing or I get choked. I think that's all I want to say about my vision for the future. I want to be general because I want to leave room for the Holy Spirit to guide me as we walk these next steps.
And for my part, it's been very important for me my whole life, but especially after losing mom, to carry on the legacy that was passed down to me. Because if someone didn't have the passion for telling other people about Jesus, then I wouldn't be a Christian right now, because people intentionally reached out to both of my parents to bring them to Jesus. And they were both an unreached people group because my mom was in a small town where her parents didn't go to church. My dad's parents didn't go to church, and he watched church on television, and a country pastor came and picked my mom up in a country bus to pick her up and take her to church. So if it weren't for those people, I wouldn't be a Christian right now. And I wouldn't have had the childhood that I had. So it's important to me to carry that legacy and do that for other people if I can. And admittedly, when mom passed, the especially when with dealing with the grief and navigating all of the life changes we were going through. The automatic response was try to make it look as close to I can to what mom and dad were doing, and it required a little bit of me to not be myself because it wasn't my ideas or my calling. I was trying to live somebody else's life essentially. And I hold no regrets because there was a lot going on. But as things have developed, I have slowly been feeling God pulling me into my calling and doing what God has called me to do. And that is living the legacy that was passed down to me. It's just in a different place with a different group of people, and a group of people that I have fallen in love with in a way that I've seen my parents love the people of Loangila or the people of Kenya for the last 25 years. And I understand it on so much of a deeper level now than I ever did before. And no matter what happens, Loangila is never going to be a place that we don't talk of and try to help when we can. And closing down Akiru, with the first time that thought popped into my mind, it felt like a failure. It felt like giving up. And the more I have seen God give us another choice, the more I've seen that it's not a failure. And it's a beautiful transition into something that really was our goal, both of our families' goals from the beginning, which is to empower local people. As Dad said at the very beginning, if everybody had to come to the white missionary to ask about Jesus, then we've not really succeeded at the end of the day.
Amen.
But when we can teach them how to do it and then they can teach somebody else, then we have succeeded in sharing the gospel.
Amen.
Because that's the truth of the gospels. It's accessible to everybody. So empowering Dorcas to do what she is already doing so well, but to continue doing, and it benefits Loangila, and it releases us to navigate this next part of our lives and figure out what God wants us to do, is a gift for sure. And I think that if Mom was here, I think this is what she would be doing too. And I know both of us have thought many times, what would Leah do? What would Leah do? And that's been great and helpful. And now it's, what would God do? And what would Alan do? What would Abby do? And we get to live our lives and have adventures.
When I share my faith, excuse me, when I share my faith, I like to say, what is it that you want? Or when I'm talking with an already believer, what is it that you want? Let's put that on the table. And then let's ask, what does God want? And that's a bigger question. And for me, it's the question that I have to ask myself. What does God want to happen next in Loangila as I share my faith here in the States? I ride the bus now because I don't trust myself to drive. And I meet new people all the time that way. And I get opportunities to share my faith with them. And when I'm ready to get bus stops, especially, there's time when I can read a book or I can share my faith. And on my best time, many times I just read a book. But sharing my faith is something that's important to me. And I believe God wants me to do that. So I will continue, as long as people can understand what I'm saying. That's the vision that I have.
Yep. So we want to be completely transparent with you guys at every step of the way. So Amen. Please don't hesitate to ask either of us any questions. Send us an email, text, phone call, Facebook message, anywhere. The website is going to continue to be up. It's paid for throughout the end of the year, so it'll stay up and be a resource. As long as I am able, I will still continue selling the jewelry on it because we do still have a large stock of the jewelry. And so yeah, that's a transitioning the remaining stock of the jewelry is one of the things I need to figure out. So it's on the list. But yes, please, if you stuck through this whole video or you skipped through and kind of like grabbed what bits you could, we're grateful for you taking the time to listen. And it's going to be available on the website. And good night.
Thank you.